good middle of the nightmare to you. I'm your host, Alexander T. Newport, here at the Al Newport Show, your philobabulous extraordinaire. Today's date is the 18th of January, 2020. So if this physical human existence on planet Earth was actually truly precious, a truly precious existence, if we had intended as perfect spirits for it to be a truly precious existence, then people wouldn't be able to be killed so easily. Or I don't think there would be any killing at all. It would be impossible to kill each other if that's the way we had intended it to be. Either one, we just simply would never have the impulse or desire to kill anyone, or if we did, we somehow wouldn't be able to bring ourselves to do it, or if we tried, the human wouldn't be able to be killed. So all you gotta do is go to your local source for news, even if it's the fake news media. There's bound to be some factual stories in there about people being murdered every fucking day. There's people of all ages being murdered, people of all ages being killed by planes crashing into buildings, by trains crashing into each other, by cars crashing into each other, by landslides and volcanoes and earthquakes and tornadoes and typhoons and hurricanes, by sepsis, heart attack, cancer. There's so many different ways to die. People die at any age, even in the womb. How can you call that a precious existence, unless you think this is the only existence these thinking, feeling creatures have ever had and ever will have. If you believe that death leads to total eternal oblivion, where there is no existence of you, awareness of you whatsoever, then you're really fucked, aren't you? Because you live in a really super dangerous world. You live in a world of murder and pestilence and war and famine. Like I say, just the beautiful, horrible natural disasters, tornadoes, hurricanes, and so forth. So I'm not belittling it. I'm just pointing out that if it was intended to be precious, well then it would be impossible to kill each other. But and it'd be impossible to be killed until perhaps, say, you were ready to be killed, or you were ready to die, to return back to your home state of awareness, having had your fill of this material world for the time being. Or, having had your fill of being a human being, and perhaps have scheduled various other incarnations as other creatures throughout the history of this trillion-year dream world. I don't know why I'm making this video. I don't know why I'm pointing out that life is not truly precious because it can be killed so fucking easily. I guess some people would make the exact opposite argument, wouldn't they? In other words, they would say it is so precious because it's so easy to be killed. But again, that has to be based on the idea that this is the only existence any of us will ever know and have ever known. And I just can't buy that. It doesn't sit with me at all. It seems to me that we are definitely perfect eternal conscious energy. Every single living creature is an eternal consciousness. We're all, as perfect spirits, perfectly equal and equally perfect to one another. We always have been. We were not created or invented, and therefore we don't have any beginning date or end date. We have always existed as thinking, feeling entities. And we're not perfectly equal and equally perfect because we choose to be, or because we're so special and holy. That's just the way it is. Given that you're eternal, you simply cannot be controlled. You cannot be injured. You cannot be threatened. You cannot be changed. You certainly cannot be destroyed or injured, not spiritually. And so therefore, we're all perfectly equal and equally perfect to one another. So we're thinking, feeling entities. We're consciousness. We're eternal consciousness. What the hell are we supposed to do with our eternal consciousness throughout the middle of forever? Because essentially that's what eternity is. Given that it doesn't have a beginning or an ending, it just has a middle of forever. Well, what are we to think about throughout the middle of forever? Given that we're eternal and we can't be threatened, we can't be changed, we can't be diminished, there's no way to improve, there's nothing to improve, so to speak. And so, what is this thinking, feeling entity supposed to do with itself throughout the middle of forever, since it doesn't have to do anything at all? Its home state of awareness, what you would call spiritual sanity and sobriety, it's effortless. It doesn't have to be maintained. There's nothing that has to be avoided. There's nothing that has to be promoted or practiced. So we literally, in reality heaven, which is what I like to call our home state of awareness, in reality heaven, we rest in peace. And now, resting in peace, well, it means what it says. Except it's a different kind of peace compared to here in this human world, because in this human world, whatever we call peace, it still has a basis of fear. That there's a basis of fear in this human experience, because fear happens when you completely forget the truth of who and what you are. You understand? But nonetheless, we all know what it means to rest. Rest is not the same as sleep. Rest means just perhaps whether you're sitting or leaning against a fucking tree or laying down. But it's where you get very quiet and calm, and yet you don't fall asleep. You just rest. And no doubt it's usually that's what you intended to do. You just want to rest a few minutes or a little while. And so you just lay down and you just sort of rest without falling asleep. It's just that in our home state of awareness, reality heaven, when we rest in peace, it's a state of bliss. It's blissful simply because there's absolutely no fear. There's just simply no fear. There's no worry, there's no needs, there's no responsibilities or obligations. There's no threat to your existence, to your bliss. There's no threat to your bliss. Naturally, resting eventually becomes boring to consciousness. I don't care if you're talking spiritual consciousness or material, mortal consciousness. Consciousness is consciousness is consciousness. And it can definitely get bored with the same old. If you think of your home state of spiritual sanity and sobriety, well, like I say, it's completely fearless. And so it's sort of like being in a room that is perhaps decorated in a very pretty way, and there's some music coming through the radio or whatever the hell, but it's like the same 3 songs. And so you're in this room that never fucking changes. It never ever changes. It's always been this way. It'll always be this way. And those 3 songs that play over and over and over and over and over. I guess because it's familiar, it's home, it feels good, for a while. It feels great. It's blissful. It's wonderful to be there. It's wonderful it's lovely to be in this space where nothing ever changes. There's no threat of it ever changing. I am that space, and there's no threat to me ever. That I will always exist. I'm happy to exist. I exist amongst my equals who are happy to exist, and it feels lovely. But after a while, that gets kind of dull, and so, given that we are thinking, feeling entities, we choose to collaborate and collude with each other and somehow create one of these fucking physical worlds, one of these temporary physical worlds. And I can't explain why, but somehow there's no way that this can be happening, that this physical existence, that this video you're watching now, there's no way that any of this can be happening without it having been planned first. And I can't explain to you why that is, but I definitely feel it viscerally, and that's what it tells me, so to speak. The visceral feeling tells me that there's no event, that there's no physical world, no event or moment within it that can exist without it having been thought out beforehand, every detail from beginning to end. And that makes sense to me, because there's so many times where you think, you want this, you want that, or you try to get this, or you try to get that, and you can't. You're thwarted. There's times when you're expected to get something done or accomplished, and you can't make yourself do it according to anyone's schedule, not even your own. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. You want to try to make it happen, but it's something inside of you is thwarting you, or circumstances, situations, conditions are thwarting you. And so I'm willing to chalk that up to what I call destiny. To me, destiny means story. A story is something that's already been written. It's not something that you make up as you fucking go along. You've written it. It's finished. It's just that in this case, we're living it out. We're living out the story that we conceived. And this just happens to be me, one of the characters in the fucking dream. Talking about it being a fucking dream. Talking about it for those who fucking get it. For those who fucking realize that it makes the most sense. One of the things I learned through cosmic consciousness, an experience I had on MDMA back in October of 1988, was that the truth to our philosophical questions, to our questions about spirituality, to our questions, to the fundamental questions, the four fundamental questions, the truth must be the epitome, the very highest conceivable concepts of simplicity, fearlessness, and good news for all, not just for some, but for all. And perfect eternal conscious energy just fits that bill, and the idea that this is a dream that perfect eternal conscious energy is having, that each of us is perfect eternal conscious energy. And we're not all one being. We're one type of consciousness, the only consciousness there truly is, which is the eternal consciousness. And we all have the same, ability to think whatever the fuck we want to think, to feel whatever we want to feel, to dream whatever we want to dream. There's no way to dream a wrong dream, because whatever happens in the dream, it doesn't diminish or improve us as perfect eternal conscious energy. You understand? Nothing can threaten perfect eternal conscious energy, not even the most horrible things that it experiences in its dreams. So if we wanted this existence to truly, if it was truly a precious thing, this material physical existence, as if it's an extremely rare thing that hardly ever happens, or perhaps it's never happened before, then then perhaps it would be precious. But it's, given that we're perfect eternal conscious energy, and we spend all of eternity dreaming as many different dreams as we can imagine, we'll never get it done. We'll never be able to dream every dream imaginable. But that's all we have to do throughout eternity. Because as I say, we have no obligations, we have no responsibilities, we cannot improve, we cannot diminish. There's no one that we have to please. There's no one that we can disappoint. And so, and like I say, our home state of awareness of spiritual sanity and sobriety, relentless sanity and sobriety gets boring after a while. You want to get crazy every once in a while. You want to forget the fucking truth every once in a while. And it's like being homebound. once in a while you like to get the fuck out of the house, don't you? You like to get the fuck away from home for a while. And then, of course, it's always nice when you come back home. You say, isn't it nice to be home again? And my saying these things about preciousness in this life doesn't mean I don't consider it precious. I certainly consider the lives of my loved ones precious, and it rips me to fucking pieces when I have to watch one of them die or hear about them dying or being dead. Because of emotional, sentimental attachment. I firmly believe that this, even though this is not a precious existence, it's still, there ain't no cheeseburgers or titties or purring cats or dogs or lovely wives or gardens or lovely delicious food. That none of that shit's available in reality heaven. Yeah, it's available as a concept. We obviously conceived it so that here we are experiencing it in the flesh. So even though it's not a precious existence, I would still say that we definitely came here to get stuck in. Didn't come here to be some motherfucking mushroom who's fucking immune to ego and desire and just sort of, wears a fucking gray fucking sack or paper bag or something and eats a bowl of rice every day and just sits in one place every day and, whatever. No, man, I say you're here to get stuck in. You're here to have the fucking relationships that all are bubbly and twisty and turny, and you're here to, like I say, fall in love with creatures that break your heart when they die. You're here to cry, you're here to laugh, you're here to smile, you're here to get high, get drunk, get fucked. Get everything, whatever it is, whatever you've experienced up until this moment. You thought it all out before the Big Bang. The Big Bang was the start of this trillion-year physical world. In a trillion years, this physical world, it's not, there isn't going to be any kind of physical demise to it, other than the fact that in a trillion years, there won't be one perfect, eternal, conscious entity that is aware of it or thinking about it anymore. That trillion-year figure is a figure completely out of my ass, no doubt about it, just out of thin air. But I figure, why the hell not? And I heard recently Alan Watts talking about the Hindus having these ideas about how the physical universe exists for like 3 million years and then disappears and then reappears 4 million years later or whatever. But before I heard that, it just, for some reason, it occurred to me that it's possible this physical universe will last 1 trillion years, which is nothing to us as eternal spirits, you understand. It's nothing. The time is the burning fuse of existence in reality heaven, and we don't measure it. Somehow we don't measure it. There's no sense in measuring it, because as I say, there's no real beginning or ending to our existence as spiritual consciousness. But obviously, in a illusory dream world spiritual movie that has a beginning, middle, and end, well, I guess it makes good sense to measure time as far as organization and communication. How can you organize things and communicate logistics and so forth if you don't have measurements, and certainly the measurement of time, the measurement of when the sun's up and when the sun's down and so forth. So as perfect eternal conscious energy, we have nothing better to do than to dream these ridiculous dreams, and I dare say that we spend as I say, we don't measure time in reality heaven, but I do feel that it's appropriate and that it's all right for me to say that we spend a hell of a lot more time thinking out these roles that we're living right this moment. We spend a hell of a lot more time thinking them out and planning them than it takes for us to actually live them out. And I mean, I'm talking a ratio of like thousands of years to the actual amount of years that we end up living here. Even if you live a very short life here, I do believe you spend a very long time thinking out every detail. And I think that in the process of us colluding and collaborating and thinking out the details of these physical lives that we're going to live out, I think that hold on a second. In thinking out the details, we run through a whole bunch of what if scenarios, and it might be that that's why we once in a while have that sense of deja vu, because it is actually something that we had considered before. You know, I don't know. But nonetheless, I think that the process of thinking up the details of this physical existence in collusion and collaboration with each other, I think that we imagine very many different scenarios until we arrive at the ones that we are here actually living out. And like I say, somehow, some way that might account for some particular moments of deja vu. But I don't know how. I don't know why that came up in my head, but it came up my head, in my head, out my mouth. So yeah, so we spend a hell of a lot more time thinking up these dream worlds than it takes to live them out. And as I say, even though it's not a precious existence, because we've had many different existences as far as physical mortal creatures, and we certainly have our everlasting eternal existence that's always existed. It's nonetheless being here and having the sensation and the experience of actually tasting that cheeseburger as you bite into it. That first 1 or 2 bites of the cheeseburger, that first 2 or 3 bites of that slice of hot pizza that you like, that you've ordered exactly the way you want. Oh man, it has to be, as Alan Watts would say, it has to be worth the fucking candle. You know, it's if we could have that taste of the cheeseburger that we have in this physical world, if we could have that as a concept, as spirits, well, what the fuck would we bother with it here? I think it's just a concept, and yet we've conceived it so that the way we get to experience it here is better than the way we conceived it, or the way it experienced as a concept. You understand? But yeah, I definitely know that it's definitely for those who've never heard anyone talk about this kind of stuff, it could be very difficult to get your head around the idea that you planned out every moment of your existence, and which, you know, quite obviously includes every fucking moment of misery and suffering and pain and agony that you've had here. I always ask the question, but why would you want to believe that someone else was responsible for this existence of yours? It's actually more liberating to cop to the fact that you're the one that caused this existence. And you say, well, why would we want to plan every detail that includes pain, misery, and suffering, and agony, heartache, and grief, and so forth? I say, well, look at the very fact that you've survived all that. Look how much misery and suffering, as far as moments go, up till now. Look how much misery and suffering you've been through. You've been through lots of misery and suffering. Any kind of worry, if you're, when you're worried, when you're panicked, when you're dreading something, that's misery, Jack. That's suffering. That's pain. That ain't joy. That ain't euphoria. That ain't bliss. That ain't peace. And then, think about the very, the heavy motherfucking shit. Like I say, the grief. Somebody's betrayed your trust. Someone's telling lies about you and getting you into trouble. Someone you love has died. Or you had to watch someone that you love die. The grief. That horrible, horrible grief. Just a regular nastiness, nasty moods, shitty moods, depression, hatred for all existence, overwhelmed with fucking bad assessments of yourself, so that you just feel like fucking killing yourself. And all of that is misery and suffering, and yet, you've gotten through it. So asking, why would we do that to ourselves? Or I can't believe we do that to ourselves. Well, listen, like I say, look how you've survived it. Look how it has not destroyed you, even as a fucking human. And it accounts, the idea that you're the one that scripted every moment out before the Big Bang. That accounts for why there's times when you've done bad things, terrible things, and you knew they were bad, you knew they were terrible, and you couldn't stop yourself from doing it. You don't talk about that, do you? Well, because most people would say you're full of shit. Because one of the sinister aspects about this particular dream world is that we're all meant to, I guess, I don't mean guess, I just mean we're all meant to pretend like we have free will, free play, like we're making it up as we go along. We're all here to pretend like, yeah, I'm in control. I can control my existence with my focus, with my will. And as I say, there's plenty of times where you wanted to do something and you couldn't do it. You couldn't make yourself do it. There's times when you did something bad or horrible and you couldn't stop yourself from doing it. And I say that, hey, the idea that, you scripted it all out and that it's actually a ride that's unfolding, unfurling moment to moment, well, that explains. That explains why there's times when you can't make yourself do something even if you want to, and there's times when you do things even though you shouldn't, even though you don't want to, perhaps, but you end up fucking doing it. So at the end of the day, this is all a fixed ride. That's what a movie is. A movie is finished. It's a story that's already been conceived. It's already been written. It's already been scripted. And so us, as perfect eternal conscious energy, we are infinitely intelligent. We obviously have incredible omnipotence and omniscience. We obviously have an amazing intelligence, the ability to, number one, forget that we are perfect eternal conscious energy. I mean, to intentionally choose to forget we are perfect eternal conscious energy, so that this physical world seems like the only existence we've ever had. Well, that's a mark of omnipotence and omniscience. Absolutely. And furthermore, that we design this world, this experience, so that it unfolds and unfurls automatically, and yet we have the sensation that we are making it up as we go along, certainly there's that fucking mindset, that collective mindset throughout humanity, where there's this expectation that everybody's in control of what they're doing and what they're thinking and what they're feeling. But if it's all a script that's unfolding and unfurling, then no one really does have control. And yet you're supposed to have the visceral experience as if you are. And you have to understand that most people will never even question that this is a dream. Most people don't really think about the four fundamental questions. They do think about them. They've definitely thought about these four questions at one time or another in their lives, but they don't dwell on them. They don't dig deep. And the 4 fundamental questions are, why am I alive as a temporary creature in this temporary world? How did this happen? Number 2 is there a singular personality, a singular entity who is either 1, experiencing all of this as if it's all these different creatures, or 2, if it's the creator of all these creatures. In other words, a puppet master god. The 3rd question is, what happens when we die? Do we really stop thinking and feeling forever and ever? And the 4th question is this free will, free play, we, us, making it up as we go along moment by moment here, or is it destiny? Has it already been scripted? Has it already been thought out? Every fucking moment, every thought, every feeling, every daydream, every impulse, every repulse, every compulse, everything. And like I say, certainly every once in a while it crosses someone's mind as they think about, why the fuck am I even alive? How did any of this happen? What's going on here? But they don't dwell on it. They don't dig deep. Certainly everybody wonders, is there a God? Is there a God that made me? Is there a God that's in control of everything? Is it paying attention? Is it controlling things? Is it in control of the tornadoes and the earthquakes and the hurricanes and the murderers and so forth? And then we wonder about, what's going to happen when I die? Is it just going to be a black, silent, lonely nothingness? Is it going to be just zero, where I'm not even aware of zero? There's just no me to be aware of anything, period, ever. Or will I meet some kind of God? Will I meet some kind of jury? Will I meet some kind of panel? And they, no doubt, every once in a while wonder about, has this already been thought out beforehand? Or are we just making it up as we go along? So, like I say, if this was actually a precious existence, we wouldn't be able to kill each other. The death wouldn't happen so fucking easy, or even seemingly randomly, but there's just a lot of fucking death and carnage in this existence, and it's just amazing that it doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what your diet is, doesn't matter what your race is, doesn't matter how much money or how little money you have. Anyone and everyone can be killed, or in other ways die, at any age, at any time, at any place. So that means that life ain't that fucking precious, is it? That means that we're perfect spirits, and this is just a fucking movie, this is just a fucking dream, and we just have these things, we just have zillions and zillions of dreams throughout forever and ever and ever. It's like a fucking video game, isn't it? I mean, you don't you don't fall to pieces when your character in a video game is killed, do you? You just fucking hit the reset button and start again, don't you? That's all that's going on here, Jack. Except this video game, it's already been thought out. It's a fixed fight, bitch. It's a fixed fight. No question about it. I think that's it for now. I'll hit the pause button, smoke a cigarette, and if there's anything more to add, then I will do so. So be cool, don't worry. Well, I'm back, and no, I don't really have anything to add. I think I've made the point. If life was so damn precious, then it couldn't be snuffed out so damn easily. And the reason why it can be snuffed out so easily is because we are perfect eternal conscious energy, and these physical worlds, these physical lives, they're a dime a dozen. They're all we're gonna do. They're all that we've been doing forever and ever and ever. Right now, we're human beings. We could have chosen to be dogs, cats, plants, fish, any other living creature on this planet. That includes viruses. They say viruses are living things, If they're living things, they can only be powered by perfect eternal conscious energy. That means eternal consciousness. That means the same exact type of eternal consciousness that you are. Except it chose to be this time around a herpes virus, or an AIDS virus, or Ebola, or E. coli, or a mosquito, or a flea, or a roly-poly bug, or a dolphin, or a kangaroo, a cactus, an air plant. Supposedly, our whole body is made up of living cells. If that's true, then each living cell can only be powered by perfect eternal conscious energy. It can only be powered by an eternal conscious entity. So there's a whole lot of collective agreements going on, isn't there? There's a whole lot of life going on here. Right in front of our fucking faces, and we don't even realize it. Just how much consciousness is infused in this physical world. And as I say, this physical world's a dime a dozen. That's why it's not precious. That's why life can be snuffed out so easily. Recently in the news, I think it was last summer, which was 2019, a step-grandfather was with his family on a cruise ship. They were in port, and they were in the upper levels of the ship, and the grandpa took his little girl, his little granddaughter, who couldn't have been more than, 2 years old or so, and he supposedly thought he was holding her up to a closed window, so I guess that she could get a better look of outside the window, which happened to be 150 feet from the pavement below, and somehow the little girl slipped out of his hands and fell to her death. There you go. And the media is showing all these high definition photographs of this little girl who looks like a complete and utter angel, and it just breaks your heart. It breaks your heart for what that grandpa must be feeling, He said in the news, he doesn't care what the fucking authorities do to him. He can't feel any worse than he feels now. And just imagine that, man. Oh my God. I couldn't live with myself if I was holding my fucking dog out the window. Why would I, though? And that's the strangest, peculiarest thing, isn't it? Why did the fucking dude hold the chick up the fucking window like that? It was wide open. He claims he didn't know it was wide open. Well, why would you hold her up to a closed window? You're already 150 feet off the fucking ground. Up in the sky. What the hell? So I believe that he knew the fucking window was open. He just perhaps thought he was giving her a better view, because the window was probably tinted, and she slipped out of his fucking hands, man. Ugh. But anyways, as I say, so these dream worlds, these physical lives, these physical selves, they've all been thought out beforehand. All these stories, as tragic as they can be, they've all been thought out beforehand. There's no actual mistakes going on. So the eternal consciousness that was that little girl before the Big Bang made plans with the eternal consciousness that was that step-grandfather, that was how it was going to play out. But as I say, even though technically speaking, this existence here is not precious, you're here to get stuck in, baby. You're here to be moved to tears by reading stories like that, and you can't help but fucking empathize with the grandfather. It's just that incredible gnawing, sinking feeling you have inside of yourself, that irreversible damage. And not only does must he feel a horrible fucking feeling in the pit of his fucking stomach, just thinking the fact that he's responsible for that little girl's death, but then the parents and the people that knew the little girl, he must imagine that they hate him, even if they say they forgive him. He must secretly think, no, they hate me. How can they not hate me? So yeah, it's not a precious existence because it's a dime a dozen, so to speak. Nothing real is threatened by it, and yet we're definitely here to be moved by all the emotions. We're here to experience all the feelings that we planned and scripted for ourselves to experience. And it seems that for the most part, for most people, it ends in tears. You know, even if you don't, so to speak, end up crying until you die, other people are going to cry about the fact that you've died. And maybe even people that you never met, but they might read about you in the newspaper or see your death reported on the news because you happen to be someone that was stabbed to death by some mass stabber or what the hell. Righty-ho. Well, I've been your host, Alexander T. Newport, your philobabblist extraordinaire, and this has been the Al Newport Show. You're welcome to leave comments. They may or may not get published. They may or may not receive a reply or a response, but you're certainly welcome to put them forth. We certainly appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and or hit the like button and or share the video or talk about it with someone. Yeah, that's it, baby. Be cool, fool.